Yeah, hi, welcome everyone. So cool to see so many people interested in marketing tech. Um, my name is Andrea, as I've just been introduced, and I'm head of marketing tech at idealo. Um, I don't see the screen anymore.
Yeah,
Is that on?
it's gone.
All right, I think we're back. Yes,
Yeah.
we're back. All right, if you want to skip to the next slide, I'm just going to quickly introduce myself. Who am I? I originally studied international management, not quite sure yet what I was going to do, then quickly decided that marketing's really cool. So I chose a global marketing track in my bachelor's already, and then dove a bit deeper with my master's in international marketing, where the first day of classes, my professor literally said, "We're only focusing on digital marketing here. If that is not up your alley, there's the door. But this is what you're getting into because marketing tech, digital marketing is the future." So that was actually my first introduction to marketing tech. It sounded intriguing to me at the time. I stayed. I didn't regret it. Then I joined a marketing tech team at Zalando, where I was part of the German affiliate marketing team for a few years. And that was my introduction to affiliate. Sort of coincidental at the time. Little did I know that I would end up working for one of Germany's largest affiliate platforms sooner or later. When I joined idealo, I also joined in the capacity as a team lead for the affiliate marketing team. And then after a few years of doing that, decided to develop a little bit, focus more on strategy. Was responsible for the marketing tech strategy at the time already. And since last year, I'm now also owning our marketing tech teams, the marketing tech department. But I will get into what that is about in just a little bit. Yeah, I'm super excited to talk to you today. I'm going to try to keep it short-ish so that we have some time for Q&A and discussion at the end, but I do like to talk, so no guarantee. If you have any urgent questions in between, please just raise your hand, jump in there. This is an informal exchange, and I want to make sure that all of your comments and thoughts and questions get answered. All right, Madi already led us through the agenda a little bit. I'm going to tell you about marketing tech at idealo. Then I want to talk a little bit about what I think are current challenges in the marketing tech field and what are some opportunities. And then I would actually love to discuss with you, what are your marketing tech strategies? What do you think it should be? What are you hoping? How do you look towards the future? But before we do any of that, I actually want to have a little poll. And we've prepared two questions for you just to give me a sense of who's in the room. So it would be lovely if you could grab your phones and answer. And
so we shared the link already in the chat. So, and I'm also sharing my screen so that we see the live voting. So you can use the link here in the chat, or you use, as I'm sharing now, the QR code here on the slide. Where is it? It was here, but we have some votes already. So here it is. So as you like, probably with the link it's easier. Oh, clear vote for average.
All right. But yeah, that is sort of expected. I would love to hear from the three people who have state-of-the-art marketing tech. Let's save that to the end, but that is amazing, actually. Let's be friends on LinkedIn and professionally.
Should we take a look on the next question, or?
Yes. So I think I got a good sense here. I'm not really surprised, but really cool to have it verified. Let's move on.
So great that you're at the marketing circle with Andrea, I would say.
Yeah, awesome. I hope I can teach you some things. I don't. So these sort of things are always tricky because I'm not entirely sure beforehand of the granularity of your understanding, of your knowledge. There's also different people in the room, so there's experts, there's newbies. It could be that at sometimes I'm a little bit too granular or deep for you. If that's the case and you have a clarifying question, raise your hand. I want to make sure that everyone is able to follow. Awesome. Thank you so much for participating, and I think we can go back to the slides. Lovely. So as promised, let's take a look at marketing at Idealo. And before I go into marketing tech, I really do want to start with marketing really quickly because I think it's a natural progression to understand the part that marketing tech takes up within the entire marketing organization at Idealo and actually what marketing means at Idealo. Next slide, yes. So like I think most of our organizations, marketing is not a singular interaction with one touch point and one user coming to our website, but it's actually a network of various touch points that address the user at various stages in their customer lifecycle, in their customer journey. And marketing is not just one channel, and one channel can never be evaluated just on its own. It's all about the interplay and how these channels influence each other and their respective value at each point in the customer's lifetime. I'm going to take you through an exemplary journey that sort of highlights a few of the marketing channels that we have, just to give you an idea, but please, this is not a complete overview of all of our marketing channels. I would need a separate marketing circle, probably 60 minutes just for that. Let's move on. So let's take our exemplary user. We call her Karen. Karen is active on the web, and one night she's laying in bed and she's just scrolling on her phone. She is keeping in touch with her friends and family on Facebook. And if you click once more, you can see that, or twice more, yes, that she gets served one of our Meta and Facebook ads, which looks like this, where we just inform her that, hey, deal season is coming up. We have some great deals. We'll help you save money. Are you in the market? At the moment, Karen notes it. She's like, oh yeah, Idealo, cool. Like I'll remember that, but I'm not in the market right now. So a few weeks later, as you'll see on the next slide, Karen opens her emails. She goes through all of them, and she received an email from Idealo relating back to a previous purchase that she made, reminding her that, hey, we know you bought this thing, and thanks to our machine learning excellence, we know that these items could be relevant. You can buy some add-ons, just keeping you informed that we have everything that you could possibly need. Karen's like, okay, cool. I've noted that, but actually I'm late for work and I gotta go. So she signs back off. Then the weekend turns around. Karen's on her computer and she's like, oh, my paycheck just came in. I actually have some money left over. Now I would like to buy that thing that I thought of the other day, but I want to make sure that I get a good deal. I know there's some sort of price comparison. I forgot its name. So she goes to Google and she searches for price comparison for this product that she wants. And the first sponsored ad is Idealo. And she's like, oh yeah, Idealo. I remember. They were the ones with the Facebook deals and who sent me that nice CRM message. So finally, Karen clicks. She comes to Idealo and she converts and she had a fantastic customer journey. So this is just one example of how our different marketing touch points are relevant in the different stages of a user journey, just to give you an idea of what we do in terms of marketing. Let's move on. Marketing at Idealo consists of roughly 4 pillars. So these are our departments. On the one hand, we have a very, very strong SEO department, which also includes our content marketing team, for example, next to our SEO team. We also have a very significant search engine marketing team. So that's like the paid equivalent to SEO. The example that you just saw at the last step in Karen's journey. We have a brand management and brand marketing team. So these are the colleagues who are both responsible for our TV ads, for example, if you've seen the latest Idealo campaign, the Low, Low, Low campaign, fantastic job there. And then we have the marketing tech department. So now you might wonder, okay, I sort of know how to file away brand or SEO in my head, but marketing tech is really up to definition. What is that at Idealo? And I will go into that in a little bit. I gotta keep you gotta keep you excited here. But before that, I want to quickly talk about something that is very dear to my heart, and that's sort of become my tagline, which is marketing is everywhere. Marketing isn't just happening along those touch points that we just saw, where we acquire users on the World Wide Web and bring them to idealo. Marketing also happens on idealo. So when you, if you would like to click once more, thank you. When the user comes to idealo, the marketing journey doesn't end, our job isn't done, because the brand experience and the product experience that they have on idealo is just as influential in whether this will be a successful user visit, a successful customer journey or not, and how this individual user remembers us. So whether they want to come back or whether like, oh no, I had an unpleasant experience, and then the next time they see our ad on Facebook or get a CRM email, they're not inclined to come back. That's why it's incredibly important to provide them with a great product and brand experience, even on the website. Let's click once more. Is our job done here? No, because the user journey isn't actually ending on idealo. Ideally, they found the perfect price for the product that they want, and they click out to one of our mini merchants. And that's where they eventually buy the product. So the user doesn't really care that marketing sort of ends or our influence ends on idealo. The user journey goes further. It goes to our shops. And guess what? Let's click once more. Let's see what happens. To our shops, we are just one of many marketing channels. They also do the same thing. They also have a really intricate web of marketing channels, marketing touch points, where they address the user at different stages in their user journey. And we are one of those channels. And that's why I'm saying marketing is everywhere, because we're doing active marketing by sourcing traffic from the web and bringing it to idealo. We're doing marketing on idealo, and then we're also doing marketing for our merchants. That's the particularity of the idealo business model and why I love it so much, and why I think marketing and marketing tech, because we are living in the online sphere. We're e-commerce. We're catering to e-commerce. So all of it really is marketing tech. If there was no tech, we wouldn't be able to do our job. But that's just as a little bit of a context here. Let's move on. Yeah, so what I just explained, actually, it's all marketing. Now, let's talk about marketing tech in the narrower sense. And now that we've explained marketing, I also want to quickly take a look at the technology that powers some of our marketing channels. And I'm going to use the same channels you saw earlier and talk a little bit about the technology that powers each of these channels. So we use technology across all of our marketing channels to measure, to test, to collect data, but also to automate and scale. We are a huge business and we have many, many touch points. We reach a lot of users across the web. So technology really helps us scale and keep our costs low. And then we also, of course, work with algorithms and machine learning to be able to curate the experience that we provide to our users. In the examples that we saw, let's go on further. For example, on Facebook, we've been doing a lot of active A/B testing just to figure out, what does Karen want to see? So when she sees our ads, when she scrolls and wants to keep up with friends and family, what appeals to her? And through these learnings, these tests, we've actually been able to optimize our creatives to an extent that really significantly increased the click-through rate just by being able to show, or knowing what to show so that the user will actually engage with the creative. Let's move on. Let's look at a different example. You saw Karen look for a price comparison for the product that she wanted, and we ranked first. That isn't coincidence. That is actually the result of really intricate algorithms that power our keyword bidding and our SEM machine, as we call it. And this is a very simplified version, but basically what you can see here is that our machine takes inputs from those search engines, but also from search queries that happen on idealo itself, and learns from this data. Learns what keywords are relevant, what are users looking for, how might we reach out to them. Based on that information, the machine builds campaigns and feeds it to the search engines, to the bidding algorithms. The machine also consistently and continuously double checks, is this still the right keyword? Do we actually have any offers for this keyword? Because obviously we wouldn't want to be bidding on a keyword that we can't actually serve any content for. And based on this information, the machine updates the campaigns. It runs analysis. It collects data so that at the end of the day, one of our SEM colleagues could also have a manual look at the data and adjust campaigns manually where need be, because the machine also needs training data. It needs to be updated. It needs to learn. And the machine, of course, also helps us monitor if anything goes wrong and if we need to alert some of our colleagues to pause campaigns. Why am I showing you this example? Because it's a great example of something that we couldn't do manually. That's when we talk about automation and scale. We have over 100 million keywords. We've been told by some of our search engine partners that no one has more keywords than we do. And this simply wouldn't work without automation. Last example, you also saw that Karen received some CRM mailing in her exemplary customer journey. And what we did there was also based on machine learning. Let's advance to the next slide, please. Thank you. You saw that you got recommendations for products that could supplement a product that she was previously interested in. And of course, we do that by collecting consent from Karen and then analyzing how she interacts with our page, taking a look at what is she interested in, and then through machine learning data, knowing what products might she also be interested in so that we can use it to craft relevant communication to Karen. The last thing we want to do is spam her, send her irrelevant communication, because then she's not likely to return to us. So these are just 3 examples of how technology powers some of our marketing activities. Let's move on. Yep, here was another machine learning example for CRM in the app here. By the way, if you don't have the Idealo app yet, it's super helpful. Download it. I promised you before, let's take a look at what marketing tech means organizationally at Idealo. And this is actually a fairly new unit that we've created. We've been doing marketing tech for a while, but only as of this year have we organized these teams in the organizational unit called marketing tech. And those teams currently include the affiliate and cooperation team, the display and paid social team, so the team who would have been responsible for that Facebook campaign that we saw, the app marketing team, which is why I just called out for you to download the app, because of course we prefer organic installs over paid installs, and the CRM team. You might be wondering, CRM, is that really a classical marketing tech function? We do believe that it is, because it is so heavily machine learning powered and also can't scale without that automation aspect. So these are the teams that are in my department, in the marketing tech department at Idealo. Why did we group these teams? Well, they're retention and reach channels, actually. So that is not necessarily their common denominator. But what is their common denominator is that all of these marketing channels are heavily enabled by tech investments. So none of these channels would be able to effectively do their job without the marketing tech behind it. To that extent, they also require close collaboration with our marketing tech stakeholders. So those product and tech teams who build the technology in the background. Of course, we also use third-party vendor technology, but we also build a lot of our own technology at Idealo. And it's really essential for these teams to have a tight connection in order to pursue the same goals. There's no world in which the business has one set of goals and tech has a different set of goals. That doesn't work. All of these teams in the marketing tech department are also equally influenced by our company's tech and data strategy, which is a huge part of our company objectives this year. It has to do with some of the challenges in the marketing tech field that I'm going to talk about later. But again, to that extent, it totally makes sense that everyone's activities and decisions are aligned so that not every team has to reinvent the marketing tech wheel every time something comes around. All right, let's move on. I already mentioned a few times, what are current challenges? And before preparing this presentation, I didn't realize that this was going to be such a focal point of what I want to talk about. But it also is down to the fact that we can't really separate challenges from opportunities and a potential competitive advantage, because they go in hand and they're just flip sides of the same coin. Once we master our challenges, we will have a huge competitive advantage. And that's why I think it totally makes sense to take a deeper look at what currently impacts marketing tech. Let's move on. I've just collected some random word cloud. I could have done this with you as well. I think it would have probably looked very similar. In the marketing tech sphere, what keeps me up at night? What is my 2 a.m. anxiety? It's about tracking regulations, something like Chrome phasing out third-party cookies entirely, like the future of our marketing tech business, essentially. It's about user consent and how do we respect it? How do we respect a user's data privacy? But at the same time, worry about how do we resolve user identity, especially in a context at Idealo where using the user account that we do have is not mandatory to use our product. It's incredibly hard to recognize users beyond a cookie level. It's also about data governance, so making sure that the data that we do collect is actually collected in comparable, understandable, reliable, accessible ways so that everyone can make use of the data that we have. It's about measuring effectiveness. It's about the complex and partially contradictory regulatory landscape, because we have laws that are new, we have laws that are old, we have lawmakers who don't always understand the digital environment and what marketing tech is about. And all of that is really, really hard to grasp. It keeps changing. And on a management level, on a strategic level, of course, there's a certain lack of comprehension for these topics because they are so new, but that also makes it incredibly hard to prioritize and to push for these things. I can't talk about all of this. I think it would be a full offsite or week away somewhere in Brandenburg if you wanted to go through all of this. But let's talk about 3 things that stood out to me, which are also incredibly related. And I'm not going to be talking about each of them individually because it's just one big block. Tracking regulations, user consent, those two are incredibly intertwined. And measuring effectiveness, or the challenge of measuring effectiveness, is really just a consequence of the prior two. So this is what I want to talk about. I don't know if we have any colleagues in the room who are not based in the EU. If not, this might be more or less relevant to you. I'm going to be talking about some EU and German-specific laws. However, if you do have a product that has visitors from the EU, it will still be relevant to you. So that's just a consideration as we go forward, because when we talk about tracking regulations and user consent, we need to look at the legal framework governing both for just a minute. And bear with me, I know it's legal stuff. I will try to keep it interesting for you regardless, because I think it's a baseline of understanding that everyone operating in the marketing tech environment should have. So the 2 governing laws really that are in play here are, on the one hand, the GDPR, the General Data Protection Legislation, or DSGVO for those German speakers, which has actually been in effect since May of 2018, and which is all about the protection of personal data. So you can imagine this in a very simple comparison. If you were walking through a supermarket, you wouldn't want people stealing your phone number without asking you for it. That's creepy. If you didn't actually consent to giving someone your phone number, you wouldn't want them just taking it and then calling you. The other regulation that's in play is the TTDSG, Telekommunikation, Telemedien, Datenschutzgesetz, which is why German is such a fun language. I'm going to keep referring to it as e-privacy going forward. And this is a regulation that doesn't actually care about personal data to begin with, but this is about protecting your end device. And if GDPR was someone stealing your phone number in the supermarket, e-privacy would be like someone breaking into your house and installing a camera, or just installing stuff there that you never agreed to, leaving stuff in your house. You don't want that. But let's talk about it in a little bit more detail and where the difference is between these 2 things, because it is relevant, actually. Here, I'm going to start with e-privacy. So like I said, e-privacy governs anything that has to do with storing or accessing data on an end device, on a terminal device. So this could be someone's phone, this could be someone's computer, someone's browser. And like I said, here, e-privacy doesn't care if it's personal data or not. The minute you want to access and store something on a terminal device, like a cookie in a browser, this actually requires consent. So you can't just leave a cookie on someone's browser without having consent, is basically what we're saying here. Where's the difference to GDPR? GDPR requires you to collect consent from the user anytime you want to process personal data. So e-privacy is about collecting and storing data. GDPR is about processing data that would identify a person directly. So someone's name, someone's address, phone number, those are fairly easy examples of personally identifiable data, but also data that can indirectly identify someone, like an IP address. If you really want to track down someone's IP address, you can find out who's on the other side. So that is also PII, personal data, and cannot be processed without having consent. And processing in this case means even so much as just storing it in your data lake or your data warehouse, analyzing the data, or sharing it with third parties. Where do we not need consent? Maybe that's also important to point out. Let's move on to the next slide. In terms of e-privacy, you do not need consent for accessing or storing any data that is automatically transferred to you anyway. So to access or store an IP address, a timestamp, the user agent that a user used, all of that data is transferred automatically, so you do not need to collect consent in this case. You do also not need to collect consent for accessing or storing any data that you need to run the service as requested by the user. And that's an important addition. So if you say, hey, I really need to work with a certain cookie to help me identify bot traffic, because if there's too much bot traffic, site will crash, the user can't use it. And obviously, if the user is accessing my site, they want to use it. Or a login, for example. If a user actually wants to log in, you might need to store a sign-on cookie on their end device. And they're explicitly asking for the service, so you need to enable the service, and that's when you're allowed to store or access data. What's important here is running a profitable business is not does not fall under the service as requested by the user, even though you could theoretically say, well, in the long run, if we're a business that doesn't charge the user for our service, and we need to somehow remain profitable in order to keep offering this business to the user, that argument doesn't really fly. It's an economic requirement. The law doesn't really care about you being profitable or not. That's not what we mean here by being able to provide the service to the user. If you look at the GDPR, where do you not need consent? You don't need consent anytime you process non-personal data. I think that's the easy flip side to processing personal data. Non-personal data could just be aggregated data, for example. If you assemble cohorts, for example, all users coming from a certain marketing channel, but you cannot break it down to the individual user, that's fine. You can process that sort of data. You can aggregate it. You can make sure it's definitely anonymous. Then you're allowed to process it. Something that I want to point out here, because it was a huge aha moment for me when I first started really diving into this topic, and let's move one slide further, which will bring us back to where is consent actually required. These two regulations do not function independently of each other. Actually, any sort of personal data that you want to process under the GDPR, even if you do have consent, also needs to have been collected in a compliant way as by the e-privacy regulation. So e-privacy governs the storage and the collection and the access to data. If you already screw up here, it doesn't matter if you have consent for processing the data. If the baseline of data that you accessed and collected was already not compliant, you have a problem. And that's why this is so much more than about just personal data, because it actually starts with cookies that you would store on a user's device, whether they're about personal data or not. Let's click once more. I have pointed this out just in writing for those of you who want to take a look at this later on. So in order to have a compliant GDPR use case, the data collected for this case must always be compliant and consented as by e-privacy. Incredibly important to remember. Let's move on. What does that mean? Oh yeah, please also don't forget about the fines in play here. So you can be fined up to 300,000 for breaches of the e-privacy regulation, and for up to more than 20 million and 4% of corporate income, which in our case is the entire Axel Springer group, if you breach against GDPR. So those are big numbers. Let those settle in. All right. Enough about the law. takeaway here is that consent is not only necessary for processing personal data, but starts with something so simple as setting cookies. In the marketing tech environment, that is an incredible key message to keep remembering. A lot of people think, oh, it's not about personal data. I'm fine. I don't really need to care about things like e-privacy. No, you do. And this is why all of those tracking regulations are happening in the market. And that's how vendors and companies are trying to react to this. Let's move on. Why do we even need cookies? Just a little detour for those of you who are here to learn. Cookies are the most common way of stitching different, otherwise independent user interactions together. Let's click once more. So without cookies, we can see individual user interactions that happen on our site, but we cannot connect them. We don't know if the person who clicked product A is the same person as that one who clicked product B, which also means that we cannot connect the dots between this is where this user is coming from, and this is the transaction that they ultimately did on our website that we profited from. And in a business where you want to steer on return on invest, you always want to connect the cause and the result. You want to know the user that just made me money, where did they come from? How did they interact? Because this is how we learn and this is how we drive a profitable business. Without cookies, this gets a lot harder. I'm not saying there's not other ways, but cookies have for many years been the solution to this problem, which is why when they come under threat, it's such a huge deal in the industry. So let's click once more. Individual user interactions, once we have cookies, allow us to stitch together those pieces of information and help us gain marketing insights, session insights, but also let us do things like test our product, improve our product, and measure if what that improvement was actually worth to us, and also let us analyze user behavior and intent, because how they navigate across our site is incredibly relevant information to us to improving our product. Let's move on. Learning, connecting the individual user interactions across the page is essential for understanding traffic flow, traffic in, traffic on site, traffic out. I just want to iterate once more, and especially why at Idealo understanding traffic flow is so important. Let's move on. Remember this slide where I said, hey, marketing is all we do? Well, the key takeaway here is that marketing traffic is what we buy and sell. So much like other companies might buy and sell inventory like jeans, if you think about your typical fashion retailer, they buy jeans, they list them on their page, they sell jeans. We don't have any physical inventory at Idealo. What we buy and sell is marketing traffic, which is why in our product and loss statements, it shows up as cost of goods sold, just like jeans would be for the fashion retailer. Let's move on. What does that mean in the online environment? It means that the money we spend on buying the traffic and the money we earn from selling the traffic somehow needs to be connected. Please click once more. So for us, this means we need to understand the money we spend on a certain, I'm going to call it category of inventory, which is really just a marketing channel, and the money we make from that marketing channel, because only then will we be able to draw our conclusions of return on invest. So for every euro that we spend in SEM, how many euros do we earn? And for every euro that we spend in affiliate, how many euros do we earn? And if we only have X amount of euros to spend, where do we actually want to spend them? What is the better return on invest? So that's a very simple logic here. And that's why for us, it's so incredibly crucial to understand the traffic flow. If we don't understand the traffic flow, we're blind. We're buying random traffic, we're selling random traffic, and we actually have no control. And that's not how you run a sustainable business. All right, let's go on. Keep this for your notes. Read it as basically just what I said in the sake of time. Let's keep going. So these were all the challenges. Where could be a competitive advantage? I've already mentioned it before. Let's click once more. There, you can't differentiate this. The regulatory changes that I've just pointed out with some examples, those are huge challenges, and they even the playing field, because they're sort of new and they're sort of affecting everyone, and really no one has found a perfect solution in the market. Which can also be fun because once you manage to solve them in an ethical, sustainable, and scalable way, that reshuffles the deck on who's a leader in the market and whose product will ultimately win. So these sort of changes in the industry don't come around too often. Every once in a while, there's a huge new trend, a huge new invention that does this. And I think we are at the brink of one of those. So if you really manage to solve the regulatory changes in a way that respects the law, that respects the user, but that still allows your marketing tech to flourish, your company will succeed. You can sell that technology, you can sell that knowledge, and you will emerge from this as a maybe new leader in the field, maybe as a sustained leader in the field. It depends on where you were before. But I personally find that so incredibly exciting, because a lot of things you can read up the history, you can read up how it's been done in the past. This one is learning by doing. This one is all testing, remaining flexible. It's really fun. Next, you knew I was going to have to say AI in this talk. That it's just, there's no roundtable, no presentation these days that doesn't really mention artificial intelligence. But I do think for marketing tech, it is an incredible competitive advantage. And it's something else that I'm really excited about, because what you saw earlier, our SEM machine, for example, that's real-time data analysis at scale. And that will get even faster, even better, even more scalable with the help of more machine learning, more AI. Same with predictive and behavioral modeling. So AI will really help us get even better at knowing when to address our user, through which touch point, where are they at in their customer journey, what medium do they need, what information will actually be relevant to them. So this is not about only increasing our own reach and profit, but really it's about making the interaction with our users so much more valuable. And on the other side, if we move away from just the user and we think about at idealo, about our merchants, the shops that we sell traffic to, it goes that way as well. It's really about understanding what individual shops need from idealo, what's the kind of traffic they're looking for that will ultimately also help them convert the user, sell their product, etc. All we're dealing with is huge flows of traffic and data. And the better we can predict what's going to happen and the better we can understand what happens along this traffic flow, the more efficient we will be. And then also, I talked about the personalization example earlier. AI will open up so many doors to personalization and targeting. Really, like I said, making the communication with the user more relevant, but also helping us respect their data privacy, because where in the past we would have been reliant on really understanding the individual user. You as the user, please let us follow your behavior so that we know how to talk to you. We might not even need this. We might be fine with a cohort of users because AI will help us learn about what this cohort needs. So that way we get to respect your individual privacy while still sort of knowing you living in Berlin, this age group, this likelihood to convert online, this is how to best talk to you without knowing you, the individual user. And last but not least, a third opportunity that I listed here is in marketing tech, I do believe we can leverage the same scaling effects as the digital platform economies. So where in a linear business, you as a larger business can profit from economies of scale. So you're larger, you have to spend less in terms of costs to operate your business because you're in an economy of scale, but really the value that you provide as a regular business remains the same, whether you're a small business or a large business. In the platform business, in the digital platform business, the larger you get, yes, you can also reduce your costs. You also profit from those economies of scale, but you're a platform, so you can scale infinitely. And that also means the value that you create isn't linear, but it goes up exponentially the larger you are. So that means minimized cost meet increased value. You can scale, you can operate, you can cater to an even larger audience, you can generate even more profit with the same or reduced tooling costs if we talk about marketing tech. And that is incredibly exciting to me. So that's why when you think about your marketing tech strategy, something like a build or buy analysis is incredibly important, because you should always keep in mind not only your tooling cost, but where that is going to scale and how quickly that is going to scale. And if you do it right, your tech cost, your tooling cost will not scale in the same way that your output will. And that makes you incredibly profitable. And one of the fun things about working in marketing tech, because if you think about billboard advertising, that's one of those linear businesses. Sure, if you put your billboards in 50 places instead of 5, you might get a discount. So you've reduced your cost, but the value that you created ultimately remains the same. In the digital world, in the marketing tech world, there is no limits to what you can do. All right, I think that concludes what I was going to talk about. And now we have 15 minutes to discuss. And before I have questions for you guys, I just want to like open the discussion a little bit. I wonder if you have questions for me.
Oh, thank you so much, Andrea. There is already a raised hand from Ahmed, is it correct?
Hi.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you, Andrea, for the presentation. So I have been learning Google Analytics 2 years ago, and it was like was a similar problem with the cookies, and it was like Google, or I guess at the beginning of the GDPR, and like the industry were talking about how we are overcoming this, and now we have a new law, and I guess like the next year will be a law about how to utilize UI and limit the AI in the use of marketing. So isn't this like annoying for the relationship between companies and users, and even for you as working on this? And yeah, why is this happening?
So I think ultimately we have to understand that all of this is happening in the best interest of the user. So the user who, for example, consents or who opts into these technologies, they can still benefit, they can still profit. Personally, I let most websites target me. I give them consent because I personally benefit from a more curated product tailored to my needs. I fully understand why a lot of people wouldn't want that, and especially in Germany and especially in Europe. So any new law and regulation is just a reaction to an infringement on users' personal rights or their safety in the digital environment, for example. So we don't want users to be tricked. We want to keep them aware of, when we talk about AI, what was curated by AI and what wasn't, just to make sure that while the industry evolves so quickly, the user keeps up to speed and is equally educated. I think that's fair to the user. Is it annoying to an extent? Of course it is. So once you finally wrapped your head around something, you have to change your approach. But at the same time, it's what keeps us inventive. It keeps competition alive. And whenever I interact with peers from the US, for example, or from other parts of the world where these sort of regulations aren't as strict and aren't as straightforwardly protecting the user, I have a moment of gratitude for living in Europe. It's actually a great thing that is happening. I think the ways we change regulations and what we ask businesses to do aren't always entirely thought through, and that's because lawmakers are not digital natives themselves a lot of the time. But that too will change. So if you have any sort of interest in regulations and you have the relevant expertise, go be in that field. Go join the European Commission, and you could really make a difference. Not you, because you work for Idealo, and I would like to retain you at Idealo, but
Not my thing. No, thank you.
Thank you. Ahmed, is there another question or a comment for Andrea?
No, I keep getting it down, but it goes up again. I'm not sure what is it.
No, it's down. No, it's down. We also earlier had this little survey, right, from 3 hands up who are already very, very advanced in marketing tech. So maybe a statement from you, something, what is your biggest challenge at the moment? Something you would like to give to the group?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm curious. Please identify yourself.
Okay, maybe I can start. For me, for our company, I think the biggest challenge is now for the marketing a tool, or we are using already a tool. The name is Pardo. I don't know if you know that. It is from Salesforce.
Mhm.
Yeah, we use it for email marketing, so for our newsletter and also for events invitations. Yeah, and we have with that tool a problem, or we are trying to find the opportunities for better customer journeys, so that we can make also yeah, maybe. And I have the question, because Andrea, you notice also how important CRM in marketing is. Maybe you can tell more about that, how you use CRM data, because our tool is connected with our CRM. So we have the same data in CRM. So we use the same data which we have in CRM and also in this marketing automation tool. Yeah, maybe you can tell us or share use cases. Yeah, that would be my question. Thank you.
That's a super interesting question, and it brings me back to something I mentioned earlier. Actually, customer identity resolution for us is incredibly hard. So because we don't force the user to log in, so identifying users and then being able to collect and process that information in a customer data platform, which then ultimately would feed CRM and our other retention channels. It's a challenge for us. And it's part of the reason why we've included CRM in the marketing tech stack when we reorganized at the end of last year, because we said that actually right now what we have to do in CRM and to really leverage CRM is 95% technical. It's 95% about filling our customer data platform with the relevant data and then merging retention strategies, customer lifecycle treatment across things like our web CRM and our retention strategy in the app. So push notifications in the app, for example, should follow the same customer lifecycle and the same customer segmentation. So in that regard, I think it's one of those areas where we have the largest chunk of work to do. And I would actually be happy to just keep learning and keep in exchange with those of you who are also sharing data across CRM and relevant or related platforms. Maybe those of you who have built successful customer data platforms, and see how you populate it and what other use cases you've found. For us, since we do have such a hard time resolving the customer identity, it would be incredible learnings. So Liana, if you want to connect afterwards, I'd be more than happy.
Because I was always wondering why the companies, because in our company it is also the case, we don't use, so we are starting to use this data which we have in CRM for also marketing campaigns. But it is, so I was always wondering why it wouldn't, why it is not being so much used from the companies, because all data is in CRM. Yeah. Yeah, but
maybe something
let's keep in touch.
Something I would like to add here that we found to be a challenge is that when we talk about consent, consent and opt-ins are not the same thing. So you might have opt-ins from users that you can contact through CRM. That doesn't automatically mean that they've also given consent. So that is one of those challenges where we really have to streamline our data and the information we have on the user to make sure that we respect their privacy. So that's one of the blockers I would immediately think of. You can't just use all of the CRM data in the remaining marketing channels, unfortunately.
maybe I can share already with like my experience. We use, for example, as you noticed, the opt-in is not the same as consent, and that's why we check the data from the customers which are already our customers. Then we can use them, send them mailings or invitation, etc. Or they gave them their consent, so we have the opt-in. But this regulation we have already for our company. If they are our customers, so we have, yeah, then we can contact them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the perfect place to exchange afterwards would be the Axel Springer knowledge community. So if you are not part of it yet, we posted it in the chat, so you can be part of it. So feel free to check it out. Then we also have a dedicated marketing channel. But for now, is there another question for Andrea or something you would like to share? And if not now, then Bastien.
Hello, so Bastien, so I work at Bonial in marketing intelligence, so doing collaboration between marketing teams and the data team. And just I noticed that we didn't see the data teams in the organization in the marketing tech, and so if they are like outside or integrated completely, and how it's the organization there.
Oof, that is a great question. So where we've come from, maybe to give you just a little bit of context, at idealo we have so-called domains, which is the combination of a product and tech unit and their respective business unit. And until the beginning of last year, we had a large marketing tech domain, which included the marketing business teams, the product and tech teams enabling the marketing business, and marketing data. So this was one unit of people who all followed the same strategy. We did a little bit of a reorg at the end of, or at the beginning of last year, and we actually, or the company decided to dissolve this marketing tech unit. So now there is a unit that is called Platforms and Data, which includes the marketing tech teams that enable marketing as well as marketing data. And then there's marketing sort of on its own. That's the current challenge that we're dealing with, because we have noticed that organizational proximity actually helps us be better aligned, have better understandings, like really having marketing data really closely tied into the tech processes and the business processes was super helpful. And the minute you create an organizational divide, it gets infinitely harder. Everyone has their own strategies. And that is my personal mission with my department, to find alignment with those individuals even beyond organizational borders.
Thanks.